All right, here with more on the legal fallout from the Supreme Court's order to halt deportation flights, former federal prosecutor and former acting ICE director, Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, thanks for coming in on this holiday weekend. Great to have you. Want to ask you right off the bat about this midnight Supreme Court decision and what this does to the administration's plans to deport these illegal immigrants. This has got to be a blow to the White House, no?
I wouldn't read that much into it. I think what's going on here is basically they're going to put a pause and maybe put some process in place for how to use the Alien Enemies Act. I don't think they're going to declare it improperly used or unconstitutional here. They're just probably going to put some steps in place to say you must do certain things under this to deport people. And they knew if people got deported beforehand, they wouldn't get that process. So my guess is it's going to move along and the administration will still be able to use this. And the good news is it will provide some clarity as to how to use it, when it's appropriate, when it's not. That's my expectation. Obviously, I don't have any inside knowledge, but my expectation is they will be able to continue to use this, and this is just sort of a temporary bump in the road. And remember, these people, if they were going to be deported under that, they're still at least detained in ICE custody now, so keeping the American people safe in the interim.
All right. Well, we'll be keeping our eye on that one. We also saw some developments this week in Kilmar Abrego Garcia's deportation. The whole country is watching this case. An appeals court upheld a judge's order for the U.S. to facilitate his return from El Salvador while the administration seeks to keep him in the country over his alleged ties to MS-13. So what do you think happens now?
Well, what the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals did was basically say, send this back to the district court. We're not going to get involved in sort of how she interprets the way she manages her courtroom and conducts maybe discovery or fact findings on this issue, because the critical issue is, did the government do enough, or did they facilitate his return, or whatever the language they used. I think what's interesting about this, though, any way it breaks down, meaning they can't ultimately order the government to go into El Salvador and bring this person back. And their argument as a court will be, you have sort of this unfair power balance with El Salvador's, so they'll do whatever you want. But that's not the way foreign policy works, and that's not what the court's role. But if the administration ultimately decides, or if he ends up coming back here, the funny thing is, his reasons for his removal being withheld, because remember, he was ordered removed by two courts, finding he was a gang member, but it was withheld because El Salvador would have been too dangerous for him. Well, El Salvador, the good news is El Salvador is significantly safer now. It's in fact safer than the United States and the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And if he's not a gang member, as he claims, it's even more of a reason to deport him, because he would be even less danger there. So any way you slice this, he's not gonna be back in America, and he's no longer going to be the Democrats' Maryland man. And Donald Trump, just one last point, Donald Trump is right. The Democrats don't care about him. They are just fighting every deportation every step of the way, whether it's gang members or anyone else, because they want everyone to stay in the country and are trying to thwart his plans.
Yeah, it really seems that way. And, you know, you hear President Trump say he is not coming back to this country. And it seems unclear if his wife even wants him back. She certainly couldn't answer the question when she was on another network. So, you know, a lot still to unfold here. We'll be watching that one. I want to switch gears to the Trump administration's fight against Harvard. The Department of Homeland Security this week cutting $2.7 million in grants and threatening the school's ability to enroll international students if the Ivy League doesn't submit records on visa students. So how do you think this all plays out legally on both sides?
Well, there's a number of issues going on with Harvard right now. There's that issue with the foreign students. There's the issue of withholding federal funds and grants. There's the issue of Harvard's tax-exempt status that's at play here. And I think ultimately, you know, Harvard is holding a hard line. And what was kind of striking about a statement they put out was, we don't have to listen to the government about how we run our schools, how we do admissions, how we do hiring. But the problem with what Harvard said there is they lost a Supreme Supreme Court case that found that they were discriminating against Asians and whites in the admission process. And if they're basically saying we don't have to follow that, and I think they didn't feel like they had to follow it under the Biden administration, that's a problem. And the administration has a responsibility to find out if they're in fact following the Supreme Court's rule and not just sort of obfuscating the way they do their admissions. But on the foreign students, it's also something that's important, because if these foreign students are coming in and disrupting the school or promoting, foreign terrorist organizations or things like that, our Department of Homeland Security has a responsibility to make sure that's not happening and they're not coming in there, and that the students at Harvard are safe from people that are promoting, foreign terrorists. They shouldn't have to go to school with that. So there's a lot of issues at play, but Harvard looks like they want to fight a hard line on it, but I don't think they really have a moral standing on a lot of these issues. And the legal standing is quite iffy, particularly on this tax-exempt status, because the last time a university lost this was based on discrimination. It was Bob Jones University that outlawed interracial dating or forbid it, and they lost tax-exempt status. Harvard's case isn't as egregious, but if they don't adopt to the Supreme Court ruling, they may have, in fact, the same problem.
Yeah, and Harvard, I think international students make up about 27% of the Harvard population. At $100,000 a pop, that's quite a bit of money. So
right.
We're going to see how this plays out. But thank
they're
you
paying
so
full
much.
Fright.
Yeah, they are. Those kids are paying full price for sure. Thank you so much, Jonathan Fahey, for coming in today. Have a great weekend.